Due to an emergency surgery, I got to my wedding late. The moment I reached the entrance, more than 20 members of my husband's family blocked my path and shouted, "My son married another woman, leave now," but they had no clue. Can you imagine being late to your own wedding, only to be met by 20 people blocking your path, their faces twisted with anger, screaming that your groom has already married someone else? And just when you think your life is falling apart, a black Rolls-Royce pulls up, and a stranger steps out, thanking you for saving his son. What the hell happened next, right? Because my wedding day turned into the most shocking, humiliating, and ultimately defining moment of my entire life. That morning, my forehead was damp with sweat, tracing a thin line down my temple. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from the raw, buzzing adrenaline of a life-or-death procedure. Just moments before, I'd been pulling off my surgical cap in the operating room, the steady, cold beep of the heart monitor the only sound cutting through the silence, a chilling metronome marking the boundary between life and death. A nurse, Olivia, found me there, handing me my phone. Her voice was a hushed mix of concern and apology. "Dr. Hayes," she said softly, "a number has been calling nonstop. It might be his family." I looked at the flashing screen, a heavy, sinking feeling settling in my stomach. Today was my wedding day. My wedding to Michael. I'd booked the time off months ago, promised my mother I'd be there early, that I'd be a perfect bride, that I would finally give her a reason to hold her head high in front of our relatives. But at dawn, a critical case had come into the trauma bay. A child, barely 5 years old, in septic shock. The family's desperate cries echoed in the hallway, an unbearable sound that just rips through you. The head of surgery, Dr. Evans, gave me a single, questioning look. All he said was, "Hayes, can you take this?" In that moment, I knew I couldn't turn away. I simply couldn't. For 4 grueling hours, I lost all sense of time. I didn't know if the sun had even truly risen. All I saw was that small child on the table, his face pale, almost translucent. Another minute, just one more minute of delay, and there would have been nothing left to save. I worked until my scrubs were soaked through, my neck aching from the strain, every muscle screaming. When I finally heard those miraculous words, "He's stable, doctor," I exhaled as if breaking the surface after being held underwater for an eternity. But stepping out of the OR, I was submerged again, this time in the cold, harsh waters of my own life. I rushed to the locker room, fumbling with the buttons of the simple wedding dress I'd left there. No time for makeup. I just tied my hair back, wiped the sweat from my face, and practically flew to the parking garage. On the drive to the Grand Sheraton Hotel, I tried to calm myself, my heart still hammering against my ribs. "I'll explain," I thought, trying to conjure a sense of hope. Asterisk my mother-in-law, for all her sharp edges, would have to understand. Michael was a reasonable man. Michael loved me. He would stand by me. Asterisk, but when I pulled up to the hotel, I had barely stepped out of my car before a group of people surrounded me, blocking my path like I was a criminal. At the front stood Michael's mother, Patricia. Her chin was lifted, her face a mask of absolute disapproval, her lips set in a thin, hard line. Behind her stood a crowd of his relatives, at least 20 people, every single one of them staring at me as if I were a vandal and intruder. Patricia pointed a finger at my face, her voice dripping with acid. "You have the nerve to show up," she spat. I froze, my mind racing, desperately trying to stay calm. "Patricia, I'm so sorry," I started, trying to keep my voice steady. "I had an emergency surgery at dawn. I couldn't leave." "Don't call me that," she snapped, her voice rising. "I am not your mother-in-law. A wedding this important, and you just don't show? You let my family be humiliated in front of all our guests. What do you take us for?" I swallowed hard, the stares of the crowd feeling like 100 tiny needles piercing my skin. My face burned with shame, but I kept my voice soft, pleading. It wasn't intentional. I'm a doctor. A patient's life was on the line. A man in his 40s, Michael's older brother Robert, stepped forward, his expression cold. "So what if you're a doctor?" he scoffed. "You should still know what a wedding day means. You left the groom standing at the altar. Have you no shame?" I glanced past them, into the grand ballroom. I could faintly hear the sounds of music and toasts, and a sickening sense of dread washed over me. "Where is Michael?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Let me see him. I'll explain everything. Patricia let out a sharp, cutting laugh that echoed in the quiet lobby. What's the point? It's too late. She tilted her head back, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. So you understand clearly and can get lost. My son has already exchanged vows with Jessica. She's a good woman who knows how to care for a family, unlike you who lives at the hospital. I was rooted to the spot, a cold shock spreading through me. Jessica, I knew Jessica, Michael's childhood friend. Since the day I'd met her, Patricia had sung Jessica's praises, going on and on about her cooking, her devotion to her parents, her gentle nature. I had always dismissed it as an older person's habit of making comparisons. I never imagined they would turn those words into a knife and stab it into the heart of my wedding day. My own voice sounded alien, choked with disbelief, as I finally managed to ask, exchange vows? How? I haven't signed anything. I haven't agreed. What more is there to say? Robert interrupted, his face tight with disgust. Have some self-respect. You're not worthy. Just go. Another woman, probably Michael's aunt, chimed in. Such a stubborn girl, putting work before her husband. You should just go home. Don't make a scene. The family already has a new bride. I looked at them, one by one. All the times I worked late shifts, all the snide remarks I endured, the little slights I always brushed off. I had always believed that if I just lived decently and did my duty, they would eventually understand. Yet here they were, on the most important day of my life, forming a human wall to push me away like a piece of trash. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. I would not cry. I would not give them the satisfaction. I spoke each word with clear, deliberate force, my voice low but unwavering. Let me see Michael. I need to hear it from him. Patricia smirked, a cruel glint in her eyes. Michael is busy with the toasts. He doesn't have time for you now. Get lost. Go. A few of the men behind her took a step forward, ready to physically remove me. Just then, the deep, powerful hum of a high-end engine filled the air. A sleek black Rolls-Royce glided to a stop directly behind the hostile crowd, causing everyone to turn. I turned too. The car was so long, so polished, that it seemed to soften the harsh afternoon sun reflecting off its surface. The door opened, and a middle-aged man with a commanding presence stepped out, dressed in a dark, tailored suit. He was flanked by an assistant and 2 bodyguards. His gaze swept over the scene, assessing everything, before finally landing on me. Then, he walked forward quickly, his face not cold, but weary, etched with a gratitude that spoke of a long, harrowing night. He stopped directly in front of me and bowed his head deeply. The entire Johnson family froze. Patricia's jaw dropped, her earlier arrogance instantly dissolving into a bewildered silence. The man's voice was clear and resonant, carrying across the hotel entrance, cutting through the tension. Dr. Hayes, I'm William Sterling. I came to thank you. Thank you for saving my son. I stood in stunned silence, my mind trying to piece it together. I vaguely remembered a man pacing relentlessly outside the OR at dawn, his face a mask of tension, his eyes red-rimmed. At the time, I had barely glanced at him, my focus entirely on the child's life hanging by a thread. Before I could even speak, Mr. Sterling took my hand. His own was cold, but his grip was firm and real. If it weren't for you, he continued, his voice choked with emotion, my son, I don't know what I would have done. My family is forever in your debt. I gently withdrew my hand, not out of discomfort, but because the situation was so surreal. I was just doing my job, sir, I managed to say, trying to calm him. Please calm down. Your son is stable. Mr. Sterling then turned to the crowd, still blocking my way, and his eyes changed, becoming sharp and impossibly cold. And you people, he said, his voice dropping, carrying an undeniable authority. A moment ago, who were you telling to get lost? The air grew heavy, thick with unspoken fear. The belligerent mouths of a moment before were now sealed shut. Patricia's face went stiff before she forced a sickly sweet, almost grotesque smile. Oh, it's just a misunderstanding, she chirped, her voice falsely bright. This is our daughter-in-law. We were just having a family chat. The hypocrisy was nauseating. Just seconds ago, she had disowned me, called me unworthy. Now, Seeing a wealthy, powerful man by my side, she changed her tune instantly. Mr. Sterling didn't even look at her. He turned back to me, his voice softening once more. "Dr. Hayes, would you do me the honor of joining me for a moment? It's far too chaotic here. I would like to express my gratitude properly." I glanced toward the ballroom, the place where I was supposed to be celebrating, but in front of me stood a wall of betrayal, still fresh and searing. A profound exhaustion washed over me, as if all my strength had been drained away. I simply nodded. "All right." That single nod caused the entire Johnson family to flinch. I heard someone gasp. Their eyes darted around nervously, suddenly looking small and afraid. I turned and walked with Mr. Sterling toward the black car. As I did, I heard Patricia call out behind me, her voice desperate and afraid. "Jennifer, my dear, about what happened?" I didn't answer. I just walked, my steps slow and steady. I understood then that when people slam a door in your face, you don't stand there begging them to open it. You turn around and find a new way forward. I never imagined that my new path would begin tonight, heralded by the quiet purr of a luxury car and the title of savior at my moment of deepest humiliation. The Rolls-Royce pulled away from the hotel, leaving behind the jarring sound of wedding music and that wall of people who, just moments before, had been so eager to cast me out. Through the tinted window, I could still see Patricia frozen at the curb, her mouth moving as if she wanted to call out, but didn't know what name to use. In a matter of minutes, she had gone from "get lost" to "my dear," a change as quick as the flick of a switch. That transformation sent a chill down my spine because I knew it wasn't born of affection. It was born of fear. Mr. Sterling sat across from me in the spacious back seat. His posture was perfect, but the dark circles under his eyes told the story of a sleepless night. A bodyguard sat in the front passenger seat, the assistant beside the driver. The car smelled of new leather and a faint, clean fragrance, but I felt no comfort. I was still in my simple wedding dress, the collar slightly askew from my haste, a few loose strands of hair framing my face. I caught my reflection in the window and saw a woman who looked like a refugee from her own wedding. Mr. Sterling spoke first, his voice gentle, as if he were afraid of causing me more stress. "Dr. Hayes, do you need to go home and rest, or would you prefer to go back to the hospital?" The words, "do you need," struck a chord deep inside me. All day, people had only asked, "You have the nerve to show up? What do you take us for? Get lost." No one had asked me what I needed. I pressed my lips together, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "I just want to sit quietly for a moment. I feel a bit overwhelmed." Mr. Sterling nodded, signaling to the driver to slow down. He spoke to his assistant. "Find a quiet place, a small coffee shop, nothing ostentatious." The car turned onto a tree-lined street. I looked out the window at the bustling city, at people going about their lives, completely unaware that I had just been excommunicated from my own wedding. Sometimes the cruelest part of pain isn't the event itself, but the fact that it happens in the middle of an ordinary day, as if your personal earthquake doesn't cause the world to tremble for even a second. The coffee shop he chose was tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, with a cascade of bougainvillea framing the entrance. He didn't enter right away, but opened the door for me first. "Take your time," he said softly. "If you need anything, just say the word." I stepped out, my legs a little weak, but I forced myself to stand tall. The cafe was nearly empty, filled only with soft music and the aroma of roasted coffee. We chose a table by the window. Mr. Sterling sat across from me, not staring with invasive curiosity, but with a respectful distance that helped me relax. I ordered a cup of warm water. I didn't need sweetness, I just needed warmth. Mr. Sterling placed a slim envelope on the table in front of me. "This is a small token of my gratitude. Please don't refuse it. I know doctors have rules, but this isn't a payment. It's a thank you for you and your family." I looked at the envelope, my heart sinking. I'd heard stories of patients offering gifts and doctors refusing, only to be accused of arrogance. But with Mr. Sterling, I sensed he wasn't trying to put me in a difficult position. He was trying to find a way to unload a small part of the immense weight on his own conscience. I gently pushed the envelope back toward him. "Mr. Sterling, honestly, I can't accept this. I'm a doctor. I save people because it's my duty. If everyone started offering money, our profession would become a marketplace. I don't want that." He let out a sigh, as if he had expected this. He put the envelope away without another word. I respect your principles, but I still want to do something for you. At least to make you feel that you're not alone. The word alone pierced me because that's exactly what I was at this point in my life. I wasn't afraid of poverty or hardship. I was afraid of the feeling of being rejected, like a flawed product. I looked up at him. You know what happened back at the hotel, don't you? He paused for a few seconds before nodding. I heard everything. I had no intention of interfering in a private matter, but I couldn't stand by and watch them insult you like that. You had just saved my son, and they had the audacity. I let out a dry laugh, but my eyes began to sting. Mr. Sterling, please don't say it's because I saved your son. Even if I hadn't saved anyone, I wouldn't have deserved to be treated that way. I was late because of an emergency. I didn't abandon anyone. I just did what I believed was right. My throat tightened. I turned to look out the window, afraid I would start crying. I didn't want to break down in front of a stranger, but then I realized the stranger was treating me with more kindness than the people I was supposed to call family. Mr. Sterling didn't offer loud, empty reassurances. He simply asked, Dr. Hayes, do you have a mother? I nodded. Yes, she's probably at home waiting for news. She isn't well, and I need to tell her what happened, but I don't know how. He looked at me for a moment. Call her. If you're worried about shocking her, just tell her you're safe first. You can explain the rest later. My hand trembled as I dialed her number. After a few rings, Mary's voice came through, strained with worry. Jennifer, honey, where are you? Why haven't you been answering my calls? Did they say something to you? Did you make it in time? Just hearing her say my name made me want to sob. I took a deep breath, trying to sound normal. Mom, it's me. I'm okay. Don't worry. I'm just out for a bit. I'll come see you later. Mary was silent for a beat, as if listening to the sound of my breathing. Something's wrong, isn't it? I bit my lip. I couldn't tell her I'd been kicked out of my own wedding. I was afraid the shock would be too much for her. Mom, I had to perform an emergency surgery on a child this morning. It was very critical. I arrived late, and things at the venue are complicated. I'll tell you everything later. Have you eaten? Did you take your medicine? She sighed, her voice heavy. You're always worrying about other people. As for you, all I want is for you to be safe. Listen to me, honey. Don't let anyone walk all over you. I'm old. I can handle it. Don't you worry about me. I closed my eyes. My mother was always like that. A woman of few words, but boundless love. Okay, Mom, I whispered, then hung up. When I lowered the phone, my eyes were wet. I wiped them quickly, but Mr. Sterling had already seen. He didn't ask any questions. He just pushed the glass of warm water he'd ordered for me a little closer. I took a sip. The warmth soothed my throat. Mr. Sterling, I said, my voice softer now. Did you come to the wedding just to thank me? He nodded, then shook his head as if weighing his words. Initially, yes. But when I got to the hospital, they told me you had taken the day off to get married. I thought, a woman as dedicated as you must come from a family that is incredibly proud of her. I wanted to thank you in front of them, to let them know what a remarkable thing you had done. I never imagined. He trailed off, his brow furrowed. I never imagined they would turn a wedding into a public shaming. I gave a faint, bitter smile. They did it because they think I'm just an ordinary doctor. They think I have no one backing me up. They think I have to swallow their abuse. Mr. Sterling looked at me, his voice firm. You don't need anyone's backing to be treated with respect. But if you want it, I am prepared to help you resolve this mess so you can have some peace. I shook my head. The problem isn't them. The problem is that I once trusted Michael. Just thinking his name was like a needle prick to the heart. I remembered his proposal, his promises to protect me, to not let his mother make things difficult. I remembered him holding my hand and saying, you just focus on your career. I understand. And yet, after just a few hours of my absence to save a life, he could stand at an altar and marry someone else. Was he forced? Was he that weak? Or was he ready to let me go all along? Mr. Sterling asked gently, do you want to speak with him to get things clear? I was silent for a long time. I will, I said, more to myself than to him, but not to get him back. I'll meet him to close this chapter for good. My phone buzzed. Patricia's name flashed on the screen. I hadn't saved the number, but I recognized it. I stared at it for a few seconds, then declined the call. Immediately after, Robert's number appeared. I declined that one, too. Then another unknown number. I knew they were panicking. Mr. Sterling saw the screen but said nothing. I put my phone in my purse. Mr. Sterling, thank you for everything, but this is something I have to get through on my own. Could you do one more thing for me? He nodded. Of course. I looked him straight in the eye. Could I borrow someone to take me to my mother's house? I need to get there before they do. He didn't hesitate. Done. I'll have my assistant go with you. No one will be allowed to bother you or your mother. I stood up, my legs feeling stronger now. The pain was still there, but it was starting to transform into something else. A reminder. I could fall, but I would not let them trample on me again. Stepping out of the cafe, a light breeze felt cool against my face. The air outside smelled so much cleaner than the perfumed, suffocating air of that hotel ballroom. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I knew I had to get to my mother first. Because even if the whole world turned its back on me, home was still the one place where someone would answer the phone and ask in a trembling voice, "Jennifer, honey, where are you?" The car stopped at the entrance to the familiar, quiet street where my mother lived. The midday sun cast a bright glare on the aging rooftops. I looked at the small bungalow and my heart ached. Since my father passed, she had lived here alone. My hospital schedule was so demanding that I could usually only visit late at night. Today, I was supposed to be escorting her to my wedding reception, holding her hand as we walked into the ballroom, reassuring her that her daughter had found a safe harbor. Instead, I was returning in a half-wedding dress, my heart a storm of turmoil. Mr. Sterling's assistant stood a few feet away, maintaining a respectful distance. I took a deep breath, telling myself to be strong. I couldn't let my mother see me broken. The door opened before I even knocked. Mary stood there, wearing an old house dress, a dish towel still in her hand. Her eyes lit up when she saw me, but then she froze, taking in my disheveled dress and hastily done hair. She didn't ask questions right away. She just pulled me inside and closed the door gently, as if she were afraid the wind might overhear our troubles. "Sit down," she said, her voice unervingly calm. "Have some water." I sat, my hands wrapped around the glass of warm water she poured for me, the liquid trembling along with them. She studied my face, then reached out to feel my forehead. "You're exhausted, aren't you? Look at the circles under your eyes." I shook my head, forcing a smile. "I'm fine, Mom." She didn't smile back. She sat down across from me and let out a long sigh. "Jennifer, tell me what happened." I knew I couldn't hide it. I set the glass down and took her hand, her familiar, warm, slender hand. "Mom, I was late. I had an emergency surgery. When I got there, they blocked the entrance. His mother, Patricia." I spoke slowly, each word feeling heavy. After I finished, I looked down, afraid to see the expression in her eyes. She was silent for a long time. I could hear the ticking of the wall clock before she asked, her voice quiet but sharp. "Did Michael say anything to you?" I shook my head. "I haven't seen him." She nodded, as if she understood everything. She stood up and went into her bedroom. I heard a drawer open. A moment later, she returned with an old photograph of my father. She placed it on the table, looked at it for a moment, and then said, "Your father taught me something a long time ago. A good man stands up during a crisis. A weak one hides. Michael chose to hide." I bit my lip as tears fell onto her hand. She didn't wipe them away, just patted my hand gently. "Go on and cry, honey. Let it all out. Don't hold it in." And I did. I cried, not with loud sobs, but with choked, ragged breaths, each one a wave of grief. I told her everything that had happened at the hotel entrance. Every cruel word, every judgmental stare. As I spoke, her face grew paler, but her back remained straight, unyielding. When I told her about Mr. Sterling's arrival, she frowned, asking for every single detail. I recounted the events exactly as they happened. When I finished, she sighed. "You saved a life, and that's a blessing. But that blessing isn't something to show off, and it's certainly not something for others to cling to. Remember, Jennifer, don't let yourself be swayed just because someone is wealthy." I nodded. "I know, Mom. I only asked them to bring me home, so I could get here before they started causing trouble. She glanced toward the door and said decisively, "If they come, I'll handle it. You stay inside." Her words were calm, but they felt like a shield rising in front of me. Just then, my phone rang again. This time, it was Michael. My heart pounded as I looked at the screen. My mother saw it and said softly, "Answer it. Get it over with." I picked up. "Hello." Michael's voice was on the other end. "Jenny, where are you?" "At my mom's," I said flatly, my voice devoid of emotion. He paused, then rushed his words as if afraid I'd hang up. "I'm sorry. It's not what you think. My mother went crazy this morning. The ceremony with Jessica. It was just for show to calm her down. It didn't mean anything." A sad smile touched my lips. "It meant nothing, but you stood at an altar and said the words. I was forced. You know how my mother is. I don't want to lose you, Jenny. Please come back. We can talk." I looked at my mother. She shook her head almost imperceptibly. I turned my attention back to the phone. My voice was surprisingly steady. "Michael, do you know where I was at dawn this morning?" "I know. You were in surgery." "I was in surgery for 4 hours, saving a 5-year-old child." "And where were you during those 4 hours?" He stammered. "I was at home, dealing with things." "No," I said, my voice low but firm. "If you had come to the hospital, if you had just stood outside that operating room and waited for me, today might have been different. But you chose to stand at an altar with someone else. I don't blame your mother, Michael. I blame you." The other end was silent, except for the sound of his ragged breathing. "Jenny, give me one more chance." I shook my head, even though he couldn't see me. "You used up all your chances this morning. We're done here." I ended the call. My hand was shaking, but my heart felt lighter, as if I had finally set down a heavy burden I had been carrying for years. Before I could even catch my breath, the sound of a car braking sharply outside was followed by a commotion of voices. My heart leaped into my throat. My mother stood up immediately and walked to the door. I started to follow, but she turned and held up a hand. "Stay put." Through a crack in the door, I saw Patricia standing outside, her face pale but plastered with a forced smile. Robert and a few other relatives stood beside her. "Mary," Patricia called out, her voice syrupy sweet. "We came to apologize. This morning was all a misunderstanding." My mother opened the door, just enough to block the entrance with her body. "What misunderstanding?" Patricia launched into a long-winded explanation about her temper, about misreading the situation, about how she truly thought of me as a daughter. My mother listened without interrupting. When Patricia was finished, Mary said slowly, her voice quiet but piercing, "You think of my daughter as your own, but this morning you told her to get lost." Patricia froze. Robert stepped in. "Ma'am, it's a family matter. Jennifer is our—" My mother cut him off, her voice still quiet but unyielding. "She wasn't your daughter-in-law until the vows were said, and since he said them with someone else, she never will be." Robert's face turned red. Patricia's voice became pleading. "Please, Mary, you have to understand. Jennifer is a brilliant woman. We value her very much. Just let her come back with us. I promise." My mother gave a sad smile. "When did you value her?" "When she was in an operating room, saving a life." "Did you value her then?" "When you were blocking her at the hotel entrance." "Did you value her then?" No one answered. Mary continued, her words clear and precise. "My daughter is a doctor. Saving lives is her calling. It is not a bargaining chip for your family's reputation. From now on, our families will have nothing to do with each other. Please leave." Patricia was about to say more when a figure approached from behind them. It was Mr. Sterling's assistant. He stepped forward, his tone polite but firm. "Excuse me, Dr. Hayes is not receiving visitors. I must ask you to leave." Seeing the man in the professional suit, Patricia faltered. Robert grabbed her arm, and they turned away, defeated. I watched them go through the crack in the door, no longer feeling fear, just emptiness. My mother closed and locked the door. She looked at me, her eyes red, but her voice gentle. "It's over. Go get some rest, honey." I wrapped my arms around her. For the first time all day, I felt safe. "Mom, I'm so sorry." She stroked my hair. "Sorry for what? You lived with integrity. That's all that matters." That afternoon, I fell into a deep sleep. When I woke up, there was a text message from Mr. Sterling on my phone. "Are you and your mother okay? Let me know if you need anything." I texted back, "We're fine. Thank you, sir." As the sun set, I sat with my mother while she told me stories about my father, about the hard times they had faced together. I finally understood that some vows don't need a white dress or wedding music. They are the moments when you choose to stand for what is right, and you have someone you love standing beside you. That night, I decided to apply for an extended leave of absence. I needed time for my mother and for myself. The road ahead was uncertain, but at least I knew I was no longer walking in the wrong direction. The days that followed passed more slowly than I had expected. The wedding music was gone, replaced by the quiet of my mother's small house, the faint scent of her herbal remedies, and the steady whir of a ceiling fan on warm afternoons. I took a week off, just as I told my mother. At first she protested, saying I was young, that my career was important, that people would talk. But then she saw the dark circles under my eyes and fell silent. "If you're going to rest, then really rest," she said. "Don't let your mind keep running." I listened. I woke up early to make her oatmeal and reminded her to take her medications on time. Sometimes she would watch me, her eyes a mixture of love and pity. "I used to be so afraid you'd get married and leave me all alone," she'd say, her voice trailing off with a faint smile. I understood. In the midst of my misfortune, there was a silver lining. At least for now, I was by her side, not rushing off to a home where I had to endure scrutiny and biting remarks. The news spread faster than I could have imagined. Within 2 days, the neighbors knew my engagement was broken. Some stopped by to offer quiet condolences. Others just stared from a distance. I didn't hide, nor did I explain. My mother, however, was a rock. If anyone asked, she would say the same thing. My daughter did the right thing. That's all that matters. On the third afternoon, as I was hanging laundry, my phone rang. It was Dr. Evans, the head of surgery. His voice was deep and warm. "Jennifer, how are you holding up?" "I'm okay, Dr. Evans. Thank you for asking." He hesitated for a moment. "We've heard whispers about what happened. Don't you worry. No one here blames you. That surgery you performed, you did an excellent job." I clutched the phone tighter. "Thank you, sir. There's a complex consultation next week," he continued. "If you feel ready, we'd love to have you back. If not, take more time. The hospital can wait." After I hung up, I stood there for a long time. The place I had feared would judge me the most was the one that understood me best. And the place I had once thought would be my lifelong sanctuary had turned its back on me in an instant. That evening, as I was peeling an apple for my mother, a car stopped outside. I flinched reflexively. My mother placed a calming hand on mine. "Stay here. I'll see who it is." This time it wasn't the Johnsons. It was William Sterling. He stood at the gate alone. No bodyguards, no assistant, dressed in a simple shirt and carrying a bag of fruit. When he saw my mother, he bowed his head respectfully. "Good evening, Mrs. Hayes. I'm William Sterling." My mother studied him with the cautious eyes of a woman who had seen too much of the world. "You're the man from the other day." "Yes, I'm the father of the boy Dr. Hayes operated on." She nodded and opened the gate. "Come in." Mr. Sterling stepped inside, taking in the modest home without a hint of surprise or judgment. He placed the fruit on the table. I apologized for the intrusion. I didn't get a chance to properly introduce myself the other day. My mother sat down and looked him straight in the eye. "Why are you here?" He didn't beat around the bush. "I came to thank you again, and also to ask for your permission. I know this is a difficult time, but I wanted to check on you and Jennifer to see if there is anything at all you need." My mother was silent. I stood in the doorway of my room, hearing every word. She was not a woman easily won over, especially by a stranger, and a wealthy one at that. After a moment, she said, "My daughter saved a life as part of her duty. You don't owe us anything." Mr. Sterling nodded. "I understand that. I'm not here to repay a debt with money. I just thought, while Jennifer is going through this, it might help to have someone on the outside with no agenda who can offer support if needed." She looked at him again, and her expression softened slightly. "Jennifer, come out here." I walked into the room. Mr. Sterling stood up and nodded, agreeing to me. "Are you doing all right?" "I'm fine," I replied, then turned to my mother. "Mom, Mr. Sterling is just visiting." She looked from me to him. "Sit down." We sat around the small table. The atmosphere was a little awkward, but not tense. Mr. Sterling spoke about his son, who was now awake and had called him Dad for the first time in days. As he spoke, his voice softened. My mother listened and let out a quiet sigh. "That's a great blessing." He turned to me. "Jennifer, the hospital mentioned a consultation next week. When are you thinking of going back?" "I'll be there," I said without hesitation. "I've had enough rest." He smiled faintly. "Good. You belong in a hospital far more than you belong in a noisy ballroom." The comment wasn't meant to be cruel, but I understood the sentiment. For the first time in days, I smiled back. Before he left, Mr. Sterling stood and turned to my mother. "Mrs. Hayes, if you need anything, please don't hesitate to call. I consider Jennifer a benefactor to my family, which makes you family as well." My mother didn't accept immediately. She simply said, "The best thing you can do is be a good father to your son." He bowed his head and left. I walked him to the gate. When we were alone, he said quietly, "I don't want to pressure you. If you'd rather not see me again, I will respect that." I shook my head. "There's no need to avoid me. I need time." "I understand," he said. "I'll wait. As a friend." That night, my mother asked, "What do you think of him?" I thought for a moment. "He makes me feel comfortable," I said honestly. "But I'm not ready to think about anything more." She nodded. "Good. Don't rush. It's better to walk slowly through life, as long as you're on the right path." The next day, I received a text from Jessica. Just one line. "Jennifer, I'm sorry. I never wanted things to happen this way." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "It's over now. Just take care of yourself." I wasn't as angry with her as I thought I'd be. I was just tired. Tired of relationships built on the weakness of the man caught in the middle. That evening, I sat on the porch while my mother told me stories about my father. "His family was against our marriage too," she said. "But he never gave up on me. That's why I believe a man's character is defined by where he chooses to stand." I looked up at the scattered stars. I thought of Michael and his broken promises. The sharp pain was gone, replaced by a quiet emptiness that was slowly being filled by a sense of peace. The following week, I went back to the hospital. Putting on my white coat, I felt like I was back where I belonged. My colleagues didn't pry. They just nodded hello as usual. Inside the operating room, as the bright lights flickered on, I knew that in this place at least, I would never be abandoned. And I knew my story wasn't over. It had just turned a new page, a quieter but truer chapter. The day I returned to the hospital, a steady drizzle had been falling since morning. The entrance was busier than usual, the urgent wail of an ambulance, siren a familiar sound that instantly grounded me. I changed into my blue scrubs, clicked on my ID badge, Dr. Hayes, and glanced in the mirror. My face still held a trace of weariness, but my eyes were different. The lost look was gone, replaced by a calm I had painstakingly pieced back together. Dr. Evans saw me in the hallway. He didn't ask many questions, just clapped a hand on my shoulder. "Time to scrub in, Hayes. We've got a patient who needs an immediate consult." The normality of his tone was a relief. Here, I wasn't the jilted bride, the woman left at the altar. I was a doctor. The surgery lasted longer than expected. By the time I stripped off my gloves, my hands were aching, but it was a familiar ache, a forgettable one. The strange thing was, throughout the entire procedure, my mind had been completely focused. Not once did I think of Michael, of Patricia, or of that hotel entrance. I was beginning to understand that some pain, when you return to your rightful place, naturally recedes into the background. Leaving the OR, I saw William Sterling standing at the end of the hall. He didn't approach, just waited. When he saw me, he nodded with a small, gentle smile. I walked over. "Are you here to see your son?" "Yes," he replied. "He's fully awake now. He's been asking to see Dr. Hayes." I followed him into the hospital room. The little boy was sitting up in bed, his face much pinker than I remembered. When he saw me, his face lit up, and he gave a weak wave. "Hi, doctor." I took his small hand in mine, a wave of warmth spreading through me. "You're a brave little guy. Keep listening to the doctors." "Okay." Mr. Sterling stood beside us, his eyes glistening. "You see," he murmured. Given a chance to live, everything can be different. I nodded. I knew he was talking about more than just his son. After we left the room, he asked, "Are you busy this evening? I'd like to treat you and your mother to dinner. A proper thank you. If it's not a good time, I understand. Honestly, let me ask my mother. She's not comfortable in crowded places." He smiled. "Then we'll go to a small restaurant near your house. Nothing fancy." That evening, I picked my mother up. She was dressed simply, her hair neatly combed. On the way, she asked, "That Mr. Sterling, what are your thoughts?" I thought for a moment. "He's a decent man, Mom, but I don't want to rush into anything." She nodded. "That's wise." The dinner was peaceful. Mr. Sterling was a measured conversationalist, never boasting about his wealth or status. He told us about his wife, who had passed away years ago, and about the struggles of raising a son on his own while balancing his work. My mother listened, her gaze softening. "It's hard raising a child alone," she said. "I know." I watched them talk, a strange feeling settling in me. It wasn't a romantic flutter, but a sense of security, of watching two people who had known hardship speak to each other with honesty. When we got home, my mother said, "He seems like a good man. He isn't arrogant or pushy, but you take your time, Jennifer. Don't let anyone lead you." I nodded. That night, I received a text from Michael. This time, he didn't apologize. He just asked, "Are you okay?" I looked at the message for a long time, then deleted it without replying. I knew I had nothing left to say. But Michael didn't give up. 2 days later, he was waiting for me outside the hospital when my shift ended. I saw him from a distance, looking haggard. I thought about taking a different exit, but he had already seen me. "Jenny!" he called out, his voice hoarse. I stopped, keeping my distance. "What is it, Michael? Can we talk? Just for 5 minutes?" I glanced at my watch. "Go ahead." He took a deep breath. "My mother, she knows she was wrong. She's been sick for days, and she keeps asking about you. Jessica went home. I called everything off. And Jenny, I choose you. I'm choosing you now." A sad smile touched my lips. "Michael, you're not choosing me. You're choosing what's easiest for you. When your mother pressured you, you chose her. Now that you've lost me, you're trying to come back. That isn't a choice." He stood there, stunned. "I can change." I shook my head. Some things can change, but some moments, once they're gone, are gone forever. He was silent for a long time, then asked, "Is there someone else?" I didn't lie, but I didn't explain either. "That's no longer your concern." He lowered his head. "I'm sorry." "I heard you," I said, "and I've moved on." I turned and walked away, feeling as light as if I'd finally set down a heavy stone. From that moment on, Michael truly became a part of my past. A few days later, my mother was hospitalized with a sudden spike in her blood pressure. I was terrified, but kept a calm exterior. I stayed by her side all night. When Mr. Sterling heard the news, he didn't overwhelm me with calls. He just sent a single text. "I'm here. Let me know if you need anything." The next morning, he arrived with hot soup. He didn't ask a barrage of questions. He just said to my mother, "You just focus on resting, ma'am. With Jennifer here, you'll be fine." My mother looked at him and gave a weak smile. "You make me feel like this girl of mine has someone to lean on." I froze, turning to look at her. She took my hand. "I'm just saying whether you lean on someone or not is up to you." Mr. Sterling excused himself to give us privacy. When we were alone, my mother looked at me for a long time. "Jennifer, what are you most afraid of?" I thought about it. "I'm afraid of trusting the wrong person again." She nodded. "That's a healthy fear, but don't let it make you close the door on everyone. Just remember this, the right person is the one who dares to stand beside you when things are hard." I fell silent. I thought of William Sterling, of the look in his eyes at the hotel that day. He hadn't asked who was right or wrong. He had only asked if I was okay. That night, I sat alone in the quiet hospital corridor. Rain began to fall again. I realized I no longer felt the pain of the wedding. I was simply learning how to trust again, slowly, cautiously, but not completely shut off. The road ahead was still long. I didn't know if I would choose someone else or walk it alone for a while longer, but I knew I would never go back to the path I had left behind. After my mother was admitted to the hospital, the rhythm of my life slowed, as if someone had turned down the volume on the world. My days became a straight line between my job and her bedside. Her room was on the 3rd floor, with a window overlooking a row of old oak trees. "Looking at the leaves is more peaceful than staring at the walls at home," she'd say. I fell into a routine of cooking soup in the morning and bringing it in a thermos. One day, exhausted, I dozed off in the chair beside her bed. I woke up to find her trying to pull a blanket over me. Her hand trembling, I took her hand. "You should be sleeping, Mom." "I'm fine." She looked at me, her eyes both loving and stern. "Don't always be so strong, Jennifer. If you get used to pushing through, you'll collapse when you're truly tired." I never forgot those words. William continued to visit, always maintaining a respectful distance. Sometimes he would just appear at the door and ask, "How is she today?" before nodding and leaving. Other times, he would leave a small basket of fruit on her nightstand. My mother, while no longer wary, still kept him at arm's length. She understood that things that come too quickly often leave just as fast. One afternoon after my shift, William called. His voice was low, hesitant. "Jennifer, are you free tonight? I need to ask a favor." I checked the time. "What is it?" "My son? His fever came back last night. The doctor on call has it under control, but he keeps asking for you. I know it's an imposition, but if you could just stop by and say a few words to him." I didn't hesitate. "I'm on my way." The pediatric ward was quieter than usual. His son was lying in bed facing the wall. When I walked in, he turned over, his eyes lighting up. "Dr. Hayes." I sat down and felt his forehead. "Hey there, champ. You have to be good and listen to the doctors." "Okay." He gripped my hand tightly. William stood behind me, his eyes red-rimmed. After the boy fell back asleep, William walked me out into the hallway. "I'm sorry to have bothered you." "It's no bother," I replied. "When children are scared, they cling to what makes them feel safe. It's normal." He looked at me for a moment, then spoke slowly. "Jennifer, I know you're being cautious. I don't want to cross any boundaries, but I also don't want to pretend there's nothing here. I care about you." I was silent, not because I was surprised, but because I had anticipated this. I answered directly, "William, I just walked out of a marriage that never even began. I need time. I don't want to lead anyone on." He nodded. "I understand. I'm not asking for a promise. I'm only asking for one thing. Let me be there for you when you need it." His words weren't demanding or desperate. They calmed me. "If you can be there as a friend, then I agree." "Deal," he replied, a faint smile touching his lips. In the following days, I dove back into my work. Surgeries, consultations, late nights. There were times I was so tired I just wanted to sit in silence. But every time I saw a patient recover, I felt a surge of renewed purpose. I realized my profession had saved me, not just with its meaning, but with its timely, all-consuming demands. News from the Johnsons still trickled in through acquaintances. Patricia was genuinely ill, constantly asking for me. Michael had requested a transfer out of state. Jessica had moved on. I listened to these updates as if hearing about strangers. One evening, my mother was well enough to be discharged. As I was setting up her room at home, she watched me and said, "Jennifer, tell me honestly, are you angry with me for not warning you about them sooner?" I turned to her. "You did warn me, Mom." I was the one who didn't listen. She gave a sad smile. "You're like your father, too trusting." I sat beside her. "Mom, if I didn't trust people, I couldn't do my job." "True," she nodded, "but trust has to be earned. Remember that." That night, William came by with some nutritional supplements for my mother. She accepted them, saying, "You don't have to spend your money on us." "Please," he replied. "I consider you family." My mother looked at him, her gaze direct. "Sit down. I want to ask you something." William sat, his posture straight. "Yes, ma'am." "What are your intentions toward my daughter?" she asked, wasting no time. I flinched. William was quiet for a few seconds. "Ma'am, if Jennifer allows it, I would like to get to know her on a serious level. If she's not ready, I will remain by her side as a friend, and I will not cross that line." My mother looked at him, then at me. "You heard him." I nodded, my heart beating faster. She turned back to William. "I don't care that you're wealthy. I only care that when trouble comes, you will stand with her, not turn your back." "I promise," he said, his voice firm. My mother exhaled as if releasing a long-held breath. All right, but I'm telling you now, this girl of mine won't be easy to win over a second time. William smiled. I know. After that night, things didn't change dramatically, but an invisible thread now connected us. I no longer avoided him, but I didn't rush forward either. We talked more about work, about our children, about our everyday fears. I knew his past loss made him patient. One day, on the way to my mother's checkup, I asked him, "Aren't you afraid?" "Of what?" "Of starting a relationship when we're both scarred." He kept his eyes on the road. "Of course," he said slowly, "but I'm more afraid of never trying at all." His answer gave me a lot to think about. That night, I sat alone on the porch. A cool breeze was blowing. I realized I was no longer keeping my heart locked tight. I was opening the door just a crack, enough to let the light in, but not enough for the wind to blow through. I didn't know what the future held. I only knew that I was finally moving at my own pace, no longer being pulled or pushed. And this time, if I chose to step forward, I would do so with both my head and a heart that had learned how to protect itself. After the frank conversation between my mother and William, a sense of calm settled over our little house. It wasn't the quiet of a storm having passed, but the peace that comes when unspoken things are finally brought into the light. My mother's gaze on William was no longer one of suspicion, but of careful observation. The look of a seasoned parent weighing whether a man was steady enough to stand beside her child. As for me, I continued my demanding schedule at the hospital, but now with a strange new anchor. It wasn't the thrill of a courtship, but the knowledge that if something went wrong, there was someone who would listen without interrupting, who wouldn't rush to offer solutions. That alone was a precious thing. One afternoon, just as my shift was ending, Dr. Evans called me into his office. He stood by the window, a file in his hand, his voice low. "Jennifer, have you heard anything from the Johnsons?" I shook my head. "I haven't been in contact." He sighed. "They just filed a formal complaint with the hospital." I stiffened. "A complaint about what?" "Yes," he confirmed. "They're alleging that you abandoned your post on your wedding day, causing damage to their family's reputation. They also implied that you used a patient's case to get close to a wealthy benefactor." For a moment, a ringing filled my ears. I couldn't believe they would stoop so low. I clenched my fists. How is the hospital handling it? Dr. Evans looked at me, his expression serious, but not unkind. "The hospital has reviewed the case. The surgery is fully documented, and the entire on-call team can corroborate your story. You did nothing wrong, Jennifer, but this is going to be stressful. They're trying to make it a public issue." I took a deep breath. "I'm not afraid of them. I'm just afraid of my mother finding out." He nodded. "I understand. You just focus on your work. The hospital will take care of the rest." I didn't tell my mother that night, but she sensed it anyway. As I was washing the dishes, she asked, "Is something wrong today? You seem troubled." I was about to deny it, but then decided against it. "The Johnsons filed a complaint at the hospital." She sat down her teacup and looked at me for a long time. "What more do they want?" "They said I damaged their family's reputation." She gave a bitter laugh. "Their reputation? After they married their son off to another woman in the middle of a wedding reception." I took her hand. "I'm not scared, Mom. I just don't want you to worry." She patted my hand. "Don't underestimate me, Jennifer. I'm old, but I'm not so fragile that I can't handle the truth. As long as you did the right thing, you hold your head high." The next day, William found out what happened from Dr. Evans. He called me, his voice firm and clear. "Jennifer, don't worry. I've already spoken to my lawyer. If they continue with these slanderous claims, I will testify as a witness to everything I saw that day." I was silent for a moment. "You don't have to do that. I don't want you getting dragged into this." "I'm not being dragged," he said immediately. "I'm volunteering because you did nothing wrong." His words caught in my throat. I remember that day at the hotel, when he stood before me and didn't ask who was right or wrong, only if I was okay. It was the same now. He wasn't asking what I wanted. He was simply telling me he would stand with me. A few days later, the hospital convened a formal meeting. Representatives from my department, administration, and even the Johnsons were present. Their representative was Robert. He refused to look me in the eye. When questioned, he rambled, unable to produce any evidence beyond his mother's one-sided story. I calmly presented my account of the events. From the moment I received the emergency call to being blocked at the hotel entrance, I stated only the facts, without emotion or embellishment. When I mentioned Mr. Sterling's arrival, Robert looked down at the table. He knew they had lost control of the narrative. The meeting concluded with a clear verdict. I was cleared of any wrongdoing, and the complaint was dismissed. As I walked out of the room, my legs felt a little weak. I wasn't happy. I was just tired. It was a battle I should never have had to fight. William was waiting for me in the lobby. "It's over," he asked. "It's over," I replied. He nodded. "Let's get something to eat. You look like you need a decent meal." I couldn't help but laugh. "You're a practical man." We ate at our usual small cafe. We didn't talk about the meeting. He told me his son was learning to walk again and wanted to be a doctor when he grew up. Listening to him, a strange peace settled over me. But the storm wasn't quite over. A few days later, Michael showed up at my mother's house. I was at work, so she was home alone. When I returned, she was sitting in the living room, her face pale. Michael was standing across from her, his head bowed. He came to apologize. My mother said before I could ask. I looked at Michael. He had lost weight. "What are you doing here?" "I know I was wrong," he said quietly. My mother went too far. I never thought she would take it to this level. I gave a sad smile. "You never thought, or you didn't dare to think." He fell silent. My mother spoke up. "Michael, I don't blame you, but you're too late." He looked up, his eyes red. "Ma'am, please give me a chance to make it right." My mother shook her head. "Chances don't wait around forever. You should go now. Don't make things more awkward." Michael turned to me. "Jenny!" I cut him off. My voice was calm. "Go home, Michael. I'm fine. You should try to live your life with some integrity, too." He stood there for another moment, then turned and left. When the door closed, my mother sighed. "You see, people only come back when they have nowhere else to go." I hugged her. "I have no regrets, Mom." That night, I texted William. "It's all over now." He replied instantly. "Good. Get some rest." Lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and thought about everything that had happened. From the disastrous wedding to the baseless complaint, from the raw pain to the calm I felt today. I was no longer the woman who quietly endured. I had learned to stand tall, not with aggression, but with dignity. And I knew the story wasn't over. It had simply led me to a new crossroads where my next choice would be guided not just by emotion, but by the hard-won maturity I had paid a steep price to gain. After Michael left, the living room felt still, as if a strong wind had finally died down. My mother sat quietly for a long time, her gaze fixed on the small flower pots she tended to every morning. I made her a cup of warm tea. Her hand trembled slightly as she took it, but her voice was steady. "You see, Jennifer, people apologize when they've run out of options, not because they've gained understanding." I sat beside her. "I know, Mom. I'm not expecting anything from him anymore." She nodded, then turned to me, her eyes both stern and gentle. "This chapter is closed. Don't let it drag you back. Not even for a moment. Someone can hurt you once, but the second time is on you for letting them." "I understand," I whispered. My heart was calm. There was an empty space where my old life used to be, but it wasn't a cold void. It felt like a cluttered room that had finally been cleared out, light and airy, even if it was still unfurnished. In the following weeks, I poured all my energy into work. The hospital was in its busy season, with back-to-back surgeries and constant consultations. Some nights I'd be on call until dawn, leaning against a wall with a lukewarm coffee, my eyes burning. But strangely, I didn't feel depleted. My heart was no longer being pulled in two different directions. William kept his word. He was present, but he never pushed. Sometimes a whole week would go by with only a few short texts, checking on my mother, asking if I was tired. There were no effusive words, no grand promises. It was this quiet consistency that made me feel safe. One afternoon, my shift finally over, William texted, "My son is being discharged this weekend. If you and your mother are free, I'd like to have you over for a meal. Not a celebration, just a family dinner." I read the message and thought for a long time. When I asked my mother, she was quiet for a moment before saying, "Go, Jennifer. Go and see how he lives, what his home is like, how he raises his child." See it all clearly before you make any decisions. I knew this wasn't pressure. It was permission. William's house was in a quiet, unpretentious neighborhood. It was a simple 2-story home with a tree in the front yard, and the sound of a child's laughter floated from inside. As we arrived, his son ran out. "Dr. Hayes!" he shouted with joy. I bent down and lifted him up, my heart melting. I saw my mother watch us, her expression softening. The meal was simple. William had cooked a few dishes himself. Nothing fancy, but everything was neat and well prepared. My mother helped set the table, and the two of them spoke as if they were old friends. I noticed the way he spoke to his son, gentle but firm. After the boy finished eating, he cleared his own plate without being told. It was clear this was a home built on respect, not on grand pronouncements. After dinner, my mother said she wanted to sit on the porch for some fresh air. I knew she was giving us space. We stood on the deck as a cool evening breeze blew. "Jennifer," William began, "I didn't invite you here to pressure you. I just wanted you to see my life so that whatever you decide later, you're making an informed choice." I looked at him. "Aren't you afraid I'll see all this and walk away?" He smiled faintly. "Of course, but I'm more afraid of starting something based on secrets." His honesty silenced me. I realized that after everything I'd been through, I had become incredibly sensitive to the truth. And William, in his own way, was respecting that. On the way home, my mother was quiet. Later that night, she asked, "So what did you think?" I considered it. "I felt at peace," she nodded. "Peace is good, but don't mistake a moment of peace for a lifetime of it. Just let time do its work." A week later, I was asked to present a difficult case at a hospital-wide review, the very surgery that had made me late for my wedding. As I stood at the podium and looked out at my colleagues, I saw Dr. Evans in the front row, giving me an encouraging nod. I spoke clearly, not shying away from any detail. When I finished, the room erupted in applause. I bowed my head, feeling not pride, but validation, a confirmation that I had made the right choice. After the presentation, I was invited to join a specialized research team. It was a huge opportunity, one that would make my life even busier, but would also pave a clear professional path. I told my mother about it. She thought for a moment, then said, "You should do it. I can take care of myself." I looked at her, at the new strands of silver in her hair. "I don't want you to be alone." She smiled. "I'm not alone. I have you, and I have your life to be proud of. I don't want to be the reason you hold yourself back." That night, I texted William about the research team. He replied simply, "Congratulations. I knew you could do it." He didn't ask if I was worried or if I needed him. Just a single, powerful vote of confidence. I realized some support doesn't require proximity, only unwavering belief. But just when I thought things were finally settling down, I received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was weak and frail. "Jennifer, it's Patricia. I need to see you." I stood frozen, a wave of old emotions washing over me before receding. I looked at my mother. She couldn't hear the voice, but she read my face instantly. "Who is it?" "Patricia Johnson," I whispered. My mother was silent for a moment. "You don't owe them anything," she said slowly. "But if you feel you need to close that door one last time for your own peace of mind, then go. I won't stop you." I ended the call agreeing to meet Patricia at a cafe near the hospital, a public place in the daytime. I wasn't scared, but I wouldn't put myself in a vulnerable position. Before I left, I sent a short text to William. "I have to take care of something personal today. Might be late." He replied immediately, "Do what you need to do. I'm here." The message didn't pry or hold me back, but it was enough to steady me. I didn't know if meeting Patricia would open old wounds or finally close them. I only knew that this time I wouldn't let anyone else define my worth. I arrived at the cafe 10 minutes early. It was a quiet place on a small side street, perfect for difficult conversations. I chose a table near the window and ordered a hot tea. My hands were steady as they wrapped around the warm mug. I wasn't nervous like I had been at the hotel, nor was I angry like the days that followed. I simply felt like I was walking toward the final scene of a play that needed a proper ending. Patricia arrived a few minutes late. It took me a second to recognize her. The imperious woman who had berated me in public was gone, replaced by a frail figure with slumped shoulders and a slow, careful gait. She wore a dark dress, and the gray at her roots was stark against her thinning hair. The familiar arrogance was gone, leaving only weariness and apprehension. She spotted me and paused, then slowly made her way to the table. I stood, not out of deference, but out of basic civility. "Please have a seat." She sat, her hands twisting in her lap. I ordered a glass of warm water for her. When the server brought it, she whispered a quiet, "Thank you." We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, she spoke, her voice raspy. "Jennifer, I was wrong." Those 3 words should have been said long ago. Hearing them now, I felt no triumph, no immediate relief. I just listened. "I never thought," she continued, her voice trembling. "I just thought a daughter-in-law should put her husband's family first. That's how I was raised." I took a sip of my tea. "You may have been raised that way, but I can't live that way." She nodded frantically, as if afraid I'd stop listening. "I know. It was only later, when I found out you were operating on that man's son. I realized that if you hadn't been there, that little boy might have died." I looked her straight in the eye. "Even if there had been no surgery, I still wouldn't have deserved what you did to me that day." Patricia lowered her head, and a single tear splashed onto the table. "I know I regret it, but I was scared. Scared of what our relatives would say, scared of the embarrassment." I gave a small, humorless smile. "You were afraid of what outsiders would think, but you weren't afraid of hurting the woman who was about to become your family." That made her break down completely. She fumbled for a tissue, her shoulders shaking. I didn't comfort her. I had already shed my tears. Now it was her turn. After a moment, she composed herself enough to speak. "Michael, he's not been himself. He requested a transfer to another state. He said he couldn't stand being here anymore. He blames me." I felt nothing. "That's between you and him." She looked up at me, her eyes pleading. "Jennifer, I'm not asking you to come back. I'm just asking you to forgive me. When I think about what I did, it was cruel. I was silent. Forgiveness wasn't a word you could just say on demand." I thought of my mother, of the look on her face when Patricia had told me to get lost. I thought of the nights I had sat up wondering what I had done wrong, why living with integrity had earned me such cruelty. I set down my teacup. "Patricia, I don't resent you anymore, but I won't forget. I'll forgive you, so I can have peace. Not so we can go back to how things were." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. I don't expect anything more." I stood up. "Let this be the end of it. Please don't contact me again. We will each live our own lives." Patricia struggled to her feet. "Jennifer, I hope you find someone who knows how to cherish you." I looked at her and nodded. "I hope for that, too." I walked out of the cafe and took a deep breath of the cool, clean air. I felt lighter, as if I had finally set down a heavy suitcase I'd been dragging for far too long. My phone buzzed. It was William. "All done." "Yes," I texted back. "Are you okay?" "I'm okay." He didn't ask for details. "I'm near the hospital. If you'd like to get some tea, it's on me." I thought for a second, then replied, "Okay." We sat at our usual small cafe, and I told him what had happened. He listened without interrupting. When I was finished, he said only one thing. "You did the right thing." I looked at him. Doing the right thing isn't always easy. He nodded. "No, but it lets you sleep at night." His words made me smile. I realized that with him, I never had to prove anything. I could just be myself. When I got home, my mother was watering her plants. "Did you meet with her?" she asked. "Yes, and it's over now," she nodded. "Good. Some things in life need to be said one last time, so they never have to be said again." That night, lying in bed, I thought about everything that had happened. I no longer felt anger toward Patricia or pain over Michael. All I felt was a quiet, steady sense of growth. The next day, I officially accepted the position on the research team. The new job would demand more of my time and might even require travel. I told William about it, and he just smiled. "I'll manage things here. You go do what you need to do." No clinging, no guilt. I knew that was the greatest form of respect he could give me. I didn't know where the future with William would lead, but I knew that from this day forward, I was no longer carrying the ghosts of my past. I had finally closed one door so that others could open. After the meeting with Patricia, my life entered a strange new phase. The dramatic storm ceased, but there were no triumphant celebrations either. Life simply moved forward at a slow, steady pace, like the surface of a lake after a great rain, calm on top, but with deeper waters that had been stirred and settled. The research team started the following week. I was assigned a demanding specialty, and the pressure was immense. Meetings ran late, and I spent hours poring over documents. Some nights, I wouldn't get home until the city lights were glittering below. My mother adjusted, eating dinner on her own and leaving a plate for me on the stove. "Wash up and eat before it gets cold," she'd say. Those simple, grounding words kept me going. William never interfered with my work. His questions were always just enough. "Tired today? Did you remember to eat?" If I was too busy to reply, he wouldn't press. His perfectly timed silence made me feel respected, not controlled. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling meeting, Dr. Evans called me. "Jennifer, the hospital is running a free clinic in a rural mountain community this weekend. Are you interested?" I thought for a moment. "Yes, I'd like to go." I told my mother, who simply nodded. "You should. Your father used to go on trips like that. It helps you remember why you chose this profession in the first place." The morning we left, the air was misty and cool. As the van left the city behind, I watched the skyscrapers recede in the distance. For the first time since my world had fallen apart, I was traveling not to escape, but because I wanted to. The 3-day trip was exhausting. Resources were scarce, but seeing the gratitude in the patients' eyes made me forget how tired I was. One elderly woman held my hand and said, "You look so much like my daughter." I smiled, my eyes stinging. On the second night, after everyone else was asleep, I sat alone on the porch of the small clinic. The mountain sky was full of stars. My phone rang. It was William. "Did you make it okay?" "Yes. It's so peaceful here." I could hear the smile in his voice. I figured, you belong in places like this. I was quiet for a moment. "William, I'm scared." "Scared of what?" he asked immediately. "I'm scared of getting used to the peace, only to have another storm hit. I don't think I have the strength to go through it again." He didn't answer right away. Then he said slowly, "Jennifer, I can't promise you life will always be calm. But I can promise that if another storm comes, you won't have to face it alone." His words weren't a vow. They were a commitment. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. "Thank you." When I returned to the city, my mother was waiting at the door. "You're thinner," she observed. "I'm fine, Mom." She shook her head and pulled me inside. "Thinner, but your eyes are bright. That's what matters." That evening, as I was unpacking, she called me over. She was sitting at the table, looking serious. "Jennifer, I want to talk to you." I sat down. "I won't stop you from moving forward with your life," she began. "But I want you to remember this. If you choose someone, choose the person who won't make you feel alone inside your own home." I knew she was talking about William. I nodded. "I'll remember." A few days later, William invited my mother and me to visit his hometown with him to pay respects at his late wife's grave. I hesitated. This was crossing a significant threshold. When I discussed it with my mother, she said, "If you are going as a friend, then go. Don't go with any other title." I made that clear to William. He agreed instantly. "Of course, I would never force you into a position you're not ready for." The trip was quiet and reflective. His wife's grave was on a small hill overlooking a field. He stood before it for a long time in silence. I kept my distance, respecting his private moment. On the drive back, he said, "Thank you for coming. This was very important to me." "I understand," I replied. And I truly did. That loss had shaped the man he was today. After that trip, I realized there was a space for him in my heart, not as a lover, but as someone who could enter my life without demolishing the foundations I had so carefully rebuilt. One evening, he drove me home and parked the car. He turned to me, his expression serious. "Jennifer, I don't want to be ambiguous any longer. I know you need time, but I also need to know where I'm going." I looked at him, my heart beating a slow, steady rhythm. "Go on. I want to officially court you with the intention of a long-term future. Not to fill a void, but to build something new. If you're not ready, I will wait. But I need clarity." I was silent for a long time, thinking of my mother, my career, and everything I had been through. "I can't promise you forever," I said finally, "but I'm willing to give us a proper chance." William smiled, not a wide, triumphant grin, but a warm, gentle one. That's enough. I slept peacefully that night, free of dreams and fears. I knew I was moving forward, not running away, not clinging to the past, but walking on 2 feet that were finally firmly planted on the ground. From the day William and I made our intentions clear, our relationship shifted in a subtle but profound way. We no longer called just to check in. Our conversations became a two-way street of shared goals and fears. I stopped deflecting questions about the future. We didn't use labels like boyfriend and girlfriend, but we both knew we were on the same path. My mother noticed immediately. She'd prepare an extra dish when he came over, or remind me to check the fridge for groceries. These small gestures were her quiet maternal approval. My work became even more intense. The research team entered a critical phase, and the pressure doubled. Some nights I'd get home long after my mother was asleep. I would just place a hand on her forehead and listen to her steady breathing, and that would be enough to calm my own racing heart. William, understanding my fatigue, stopped asking me out. A simple text, "Remember to rest," was all it took to make me feel I wasn't alone. One morning, my mother called me over. She was holding a small, antique wooden box. "Jennifer, come here." Inside was a simple, plain gold band. "This was my wedding ring," she said. "Mom, why are you giving this to me?" "I'm not giving it to you to wear," she explained, her gaze deep and steady. "I'm giving it to you, so you remember. Your father wasn't a rich man, or a man of fancy words. But when I was in labor with you, he stayed awake for 3 nights in that hospital hallway. When I was sick, he dropped everything to care for me. I want you to remember that marriage isn't the ceremony. It's whether they stay when things get hard." I took her hand, a lump forming in my throat. "I'll remember." That afternoon, I told William about the ring. He listened, then asked, "Are you scared?" "Terrified," I admitted. "I'm terrified of making the wrong choice again." He looked at me for a long time. "Jennifer, I'm scared too. But I think if we let fear stop us from moving forward, we'll spend our whole lives standing still." Then, unexpectedly, Michael reappeared. He didn't come for me. He came for my mother. I got home from work to find him standing outside our gate. My mother stood on the other side, neither inviting him in nor sending him away. "Ma'am, can I just talk to you for a minute?" he asked. "Make it quick," she said. He bowed his head. "I'm moving away soon. I wanted to say goodbye." My mother nodded. "Wherever you go, live an honorable life. Don't make anyone else suffer." He turned to me, his eyes no longer pleading. "Just tired. Jennifer, I wish you peace." I nodded back. "You too, Michael." There were no tears, no accusations. We were just 2 people whose paths had briefly converged before branching off in completely different directions. That night, when I told William, he just said, "It's good that it's finally closed." I realized my heart no longer stirred at the mention of Michael's name. I had truly moved on. A month later, our research team had a major breakthrough. I was chosen to present our findings at a national conference. Dr. Evans told me, "This is a big opportunity, Jennifer. Prepare well." My career was pulling me forward, but it also made me think. I didn't want to lose my family in the pursuit of success. William was the one who asked, "If your work gets even more demanding, will you be afraid?" "Yes," I answered honestly. "But it's the life I chose." He nodded. "I don't need you to be less. I just need you to remember to come home." His words settled me. Not every man could say that, and fewer still could live by it. One weekend, William took my mother and me to a quiet restaurant by the river. The air was cool. The water calmed. My mother looked at us and asked unexpectedly, "So what's the plan for you two?" I froze. William looked at me, then turned to her. "Ma'am, we're taking it one day at a time. We don't want to rush things." "You don't need to rush," she said, nodding. "You just need to live each day with kindness." When we got home, I asked William, "Do you feel pressured?" He smiled. "Yes, but it's a good pressure." I realized our relationship wasn't about healing old wounds. It was about building a better life together. We had met when we were both clear-headed enough to know what we truly needed. That night, I lay in bed listening to my mother tell stories about my father. "Happiness isn't always bright and loud," she said. "Sometimes it's just the feeling of peace you have when you close your eyes at night." I understood, And I knew, slowly but surely, I was finding my way to that feeling. It wasn't rushed or imagined. It was real. Time seemed to accelerate after that. The research entered its final stages, and I was at the hospital more than I was at home. I would leave the OR to find the sky already dark, the long, empty hallways of the hospital pulling me back to reality. My mother grew accustomed to my schedule. She never complained, just left a warm pot of soup on the stove. Sometimes eating alone in the quiet kitchen, I'd realize that love, in its purest form, was simply a bowl of soup kept warm for your return. William visited less frequently. "You're in a crucial phase of your work," he told me. "I don't want to be a distraction." That understanding made me trust him even more. One afternoon, Dr. Evans called me into his office. "Jennifer, the hospital is considering sending you on a 3-month fellowship program down south. It's a rare opportunity." I was stunned. 3 months away from my mother, from William, from the stable life I had just begun to build. But it was also the opportunity one had always dreamed of. "Do I have time to think about it?" "A little," he said. "Talk to your family." That night, I told my mother. She was silent for a long time. I could see the worry in her eyes, but it wasn't for me. It was for herself. Finally, she said, "Go, Jennifer. Opportunities don't wait. I can manage on my own." I took her hand. "I'm worried about you being alone." She smiled faintly. "I've been alone for decades. What's important is that you don't leave yourself behind." Her words struck me to the core. She was putting my future before her own loneliness. I met William at our usual spot by the river. He wasn't surprised by the news. He simply asked, "Do you want to go?" "I do," I admitted. "But I'm worried." "It's right to be worried," he nodded. "But if you don't go because you're worried, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." I looked at him. "Aren't you afraid?" "Yes," he said bluntly. "I'm afraid you'll go so far away you'll realize you don't need me anymore." His honesty made me smile. That was all the reassurance I needed. He continued, his voice serious. "I won't make promises to wait. I'll just say this. If you come back and you still want to walk this path with me, I will be here. No chains, no obligations." It was his way of respecting my freedom. I accepted the fellowship. The days leading up to my departure were a blur of preparations. My mother quietly mended a few of my old coats. The night before I left, we sat on the porch under a bright moon. "Remember, Jennifer," she said, "you travel to open your eyes, but you must always remember the way home." The 3 months flew by. I learned more than I ever imagined. Not just about medicine, but about life. Some nights, exhausted in a strange city, I would remember my mother's words and William's quiet confidence, and I would find the strength to carry on. The day I returned, a light rain was falling. My mother was waiting at the door, her eyes wet with tears as she smiled. I hugged her, feeling like I was holding my entire world. That evening, William came by with a small bouquet of flowers. He looked at me and asked, "Was it worth it?" I smiled. "Yes, it was." He nodded. "Good." We talked for hours, not needing to recount every detail of the past 3 months. Just looking at each other, I knew that some distances don't create separation when two hearts have already made room for one another. That night, my mother looked at us and said, "If you two have thought it through, don't let any more time go to waste." I turned to William. He looked back at me, his gaze calm and certain. I knew our story had reached its final chapter, one that required not a rushed conclusion, but a dignified one. The morning William came to the house, I knew the day would be different. It wasn't his clothes, which were slightly more formal than usual, nor the flowers in his hand. It was the look in his eyes, the look of a man who had considered every angle and had finally chosen his place to stand. My mother opened the door, glanced at him, then at me. She said nothing, only took a step back to let him in. I understood. In these moments, words are unnecessary. William stood before me, his voice low but clear. "Jennifer, I've thought this through. I don't want to be ambiguous any longer. I want to ask for your permission and for your mother's to marry you." I didn't cry or feel a flutter of panic as I once might have. My heart just seemed to slow to a calm, familiar rhythm. I turned to my mother. She looked at me for a long time, then nodded. "It's your decision, honey." I looked back at William. "I don't need a big ceremony or a grand gesture. I just need a quiet home where I know I won't be left behind. I promise, he said, without a trace of hesitation. Our wedding was a simple, intimate affair, a warm meal with our closest friends and family. I wore a simple cream-colored dress. My mother sat beside me, her hand holding mine tightly. I looked around the room and saw only faces filled with genuine love. There were no ghosts from my past. My heart felt not a twinge of sadness, only lightness. Standing before me, William didn't recite flowery vows. He just said, "I'm not good at promising forever, but I promise to come home every day." I understood the weight of those words. For a man who had known great loss, coming home wasn't a habit. It was a conscious choice. After the wedding, life returned to its familiar rhythm. I went back to the hospital. William never complained about my late nights or the pot of soup reheated for the second time. My mother moved in with us. The house wasn't large, but it was filled with a quiet contentment. My career continued to advance. Sometimes I worried I was losing myself in my work, but William would just say, "You focus on what you need to do. I've got things here." His support wasn't about enabling me. It was about empowering me. I no longer had to choose between my passion and my family, because the man beside me didn't ask me to sacrifice any part of myself. One evening, I found the old gold ring my mother had shown me. Holding it, I understood that marriage isn't the moment rings are exchanged. It was the quiet evenings when two people could sit in silence together and not feel empty. Occasionally, I'd hear news of the Johnsons. Michael had moved far away. Patricia's health was declining. I felt no resentment, only a distant hope that everyone had learned their own lessons. One night at the hospital, an emergency case came in. I rushed into the OR. 4 hours later, the surgery was a success. When I walked out exhausted, William was standing in the hallway with my coat. He didn't ask about the patient. He just asked, "Are you okay?" I nodded. He draped the coat over my shoulders. "Let's go home." In that moment, I remember that morning at the hotel so long ago. I had also just come from a long surgery, sweat still on my brow, only to be met with glares of accusation. Now I was in the same situation, but the man waiting for me was there. Not because of my achievements, but simply because I was his wife. I finally understood. Karma wasn't about revenge. It was about each person eventually finding the place where they truly belonged. A year later, on the anniversary of the wedding that never was, William, my mother, and I had a quiet dinner. No one mentioned the past. My mother was healthier and laughed more easily. "A year ago today, you must have been going through a lot," William teased gently. I smiled. "Yes, but it brought me here." Later that night, I stood on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. I thought about the path I had traveled. If I hadn't chosen the operating room that day, if I had begged for forgiveness, if I had gone back to Michael out of fear of being alone, I would have lived a different life. Calm on the surface, but hollow inside. Now, I wasn't richer or more famous, but I was living as myself. I was a doctor, a daughter, a wife, and above all, a woman who had refused to trade her conscience for a place at someone else's table. William came out and stood beside me. "What are you thinking about?" "The end of a story," I said softly. He looked puzzled. "The end of an old story," I clarified, smiling. "And the beginning of a new one." He took my hand, saying nothing more. Some endings don't need applause. They just need a house with the lights on, someone waiting inside, and a heart that no longer has to run. For me, that was more than enough. Music swells gently, then fades out slowly. What about you? Have you ever had a moment where you had to choose between your integrity and what others expected of you? How did you find your way forward? I'd really love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Take care, and good luck with your own journey.